this new episode of Dropping Pebbles in the Pond, the first episode of season 2, and it's good to be back. We're live on a variety of different platforms, so whether you're watching on one of the multiple destinations on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, even Twitter, I think, and whether you're watching live or watching the recording, welcome to this show. As usual, I invite you to settle in, grab a brew or your favorite tipple. I'm being kind to my body right now, so my favorite tipple at the moment is water, but if you've got something stronger, who can blame you? Also, grab a notebook, because not only do I have a few questions for you to reflect on, I also have a very special guest joining me a little later on. So be ready to make some notes. And I'll be asking you to share your thoughts throughout this episode. And just for your information, having said that you can join on a whole host of different places, it's easier for us to see your comments in real time so that we can interact with you as a proper conversation, as it were, if you're watching on YouTube. And also it's in high definition, so you get to see me and my guest kind of a bit sharper. Or is soft focus better? Who knows? Anyway, head over to YouTube and join us over there, because it's a much better experience all round. Now, I'm always interested to know where you're joining from, so do let us know which part of the world you're currently in. Or as my dear friend Mary Alice says, where your feet are currently hitting the ground. It's not unusual for us to have people with us from at least 4 different continents. So let's see if we can match that at least for this launch of season 2. So let's see where we're connecting with people today. As ever, I'm being supported or held together, as is often the case, behind the scenes by my brilliant team, and they will share comments and questions as they become relevant. And they need to do that. Shall I tell you why? Because I don't always remember to look. I never was any good at multitasking, and the good news is apparently none of us really are. So if we've got people joining us already, let's see where those people are from. Remember to pop it in the chat. Now, the title of this particular episode, The Majesty of Quiet Presence. Now, I know I'm biased, but this particular phrase has me smiling deep within my being. I was chatting with people at a coffee morning earlier today, and independently, 2 people said, "You always seem so calm and give off this aura of peace." I had to chuckle, because actually, if only they knew the swan-like antics going on beneath my calm exterior. So there's something interesting, isn't there, about our presence? It doesn't always represent exactly how we're feeling, but it's something that we have more control over, perhaps, than we imagine. So let's start by asking, when we say someone has presence, what do we really mean? Is it charisma? Because that often calls to mind a kind of big, fun personality. Is it command, how you hold or demand the attention of people that you're with? Is it magnetism, how people are drawn to you? Is it confidence, the ability to brazen it out and do things that scare you? Or maybe it's a certain je ne sais quoi. It's difficult to define presence, but it's easy to spot. It's easy to know when you're actually with somebody who has presence. So even if you can't put your finger on it, we often feel it at a very visceral level. Now, knowing the importance of having presence in today's judgmental world is one of the ways introverts can be lured into bending themselves out of shape so that they conform to a biased view of what having presence means according to someone else's opinion. So today, I'll share a little about how we can discover and master our quiet, authentic presence. And spoiler alert, the most important element for me is that authenticity. None of this fake it till you make it. I really don't believe in any of that stuff. But you already know my feelings on that, right? So, people who I consider have presence just seem so comfortable in their own skin, so at ease with who they are. They're not out to prove anything to anyone. Just good, honest, grounded interiority, as Caroline McHugh calls it in her TED Talk, The Art of Being Yourself. And it's one of the most powerful self-concepts that I have encountered. Helping clients to find their interiority means we're not comparing ourselves with others in some way, but using it as the foundation of healthy self-esteem and therefore flourishing. But why am I saying Majesty? There's a bit of a joke with my team about Majesty, but there's also a serious element, because when we experience someone with presence, there is an undeniable regality. Is that even a word? I don't know, but a regality to how they show up, which, contrary to popular belief, is not from superiority. Superiority, in my opinion, is for the small-minded, the weak, the insecure who need to play power games to feel important. I have a client who needs to occupy her queen archetype more often, and I'll occasionally drop her a message before she's due into a difficult meeting to say something like, "Is that your robes I can hear swishing?" We both know exactly what that means, and she's able to bring about a state change so that she brings to the front that presence that she has. I think we've got a few comments, so let's share some of those before I move on and introduce my guest. Hello, Shelley from sunny Kent. And you're right, wasn't it a gorgeous day down here today? Perfect. And High Tech Mother, thank you for joining us. It's a little earlier than we used to be, so hopefully it's not quite so late. Yeah, 11:40 in Asia. Here to learn and support, and excited to meet Helen. And so you should be, High Tech Mother. She's a wonder. Yes, good. You hate fake it till you make it. It's ridiculous and it's not sustainable. So I'm glad you hate it too. So Majesty, for me, describes a beautiful balance of confidence and being of service, of composure and humility, of command and empathy. When we're embodying these regal archetypes, we carry ourselves in a certain way. Notice, look, I'm already sitting up and my shoulders I'm carrying myself better. And we have a calm demeanor that's undeniably a soft power that has service at its heart. And as you'll see in just a moment, you'll know why I invited my guest to join us for this conversation, because she epitomizes all of those things to me. And as a highly respected and experienced therapist who works with clients who've experienced trauma, I know that she's just the kind of presence that I'd want to work with. I gravitated towards Helen as soon as I met her, and I'm pretty sure that you'll have the same reaction as I did and still do. So here with some of the questions I'll be exploring with Helen, we're going to explore together why we need to focus on our presence as introverts. And we're going to explore each of our thoughts about how we develop our own presence. I have my ways, and they'll no doubt come out in our conversation. So without further ado, please help me to welcome to our pond side, and I'll ask her to start with introducing herself to you all. Please welcome Helen. Helen, tell us a little about who you are.
Oh, thank you. What a lovely welcome. Thank you. Obviously, I'm Helen. I'm a a number of things, but a psychotherapist, specialist trauma therapist, full-blown human. And I live in France, but I work internationally with children and adults of all ages, across the spectrum of ages, who are feeling disconnected with themselves after their experiences of trauma. And whilst I specialise in childhood, complex and sexual trauma, in my work over the last 24, nearly 25 years, I've seen all the areas of where trauma has influenced people's lives, their thoughts, behaviours, emotions, sensations, and the way that they see themselves. So it's something that I can see myself doing for much longer, and thoroughly love what I do.
Yeah. And how often have we talked about how important it is to really love what we do, and how we tend to come into ourselves and really flourish when we're doing something we love? So why don't we start with that question about, because you and I both identify as introverts. People on the outside might not recognize that, but certainly we both do. Why do you think it's important for us to focus on demonstrating presence as introverts, Helen?
I'm going to link in with a bit of what you said, or elements of what you said in your piece before I was sitting wrapped backstage, and link in with the concept of authenticity. You know, it is. In some respects, it's a bit of an overused term. We see it a lot. It's a bit like trauma is an overused term, to be honest.
Yeah.
But authenticity, I think, has lost some of its authenticity when we read about it, when we see about it, when people talk about it. And the way I think about authenticity and being an introvert, and the importance of authenticity in developing that presence is through understanding it as a sense of wholeness. Understanding it as, because it's something that we're all seeking. Wholeness is something that we seek throughout our lives. Wholeness, connection, and the way that I always talk about connection. So when people talk to me about feeling disconnected from their world, I actually say, well, actually, we need to bring the connection back to you, to that wholeness, to that authenticity. So when I think about it in terms of that presence as an introvert, it allows us to, authenticity allows us to show up in our wholeness. It allows us to show up in the wholeness of expressing ourselves with our genuine thoughts and emotions without the pressure to conform. And, to conform to external expectations. I spent years trying to conform to external expectations as a child, as a young person, as a young woman. And it wasn't really until kind of my mid-20s, I think, that I kind of went, enough, really, really connected in with myself. And I have a lot of my clients say, when I grow up, I really want to be like Helen. And I, and I'm like,
me too.
And because, authenticity is about that, and presence is about that ability to express yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, your sensations, the sense that, the physical sensations that you have, and the individuality of who you are. And, I just remember as a child, I grew up in a big family, and I was the quiet one, and I was good with that, but there were expectations for me to join in with the loudness, and that didn't connect in with me, still doesn't, but the rest are okay with that now. So for me, presence is authenticity, and when we, and self-awareness and self-acceptance. And the two of those aren't possible without self-compassion. I'm a big self-compassion fan.
Yeah.
And as introverts, we have to have compassion for ourselves. As human beings, we need to have compassion for ourselves. But to develop that authenticity, that presence through authenticity and self-awareness and self-attunement,
yes,
we have to connect in with our self-compassion. It's a dirty word for a lot of people, but it become, because it's seen as self-pity.
Right.
It's considered as self-pity and wallowing in self-pity, and self-compassion is not that. Self-compassion is the most powerful thing, an empowering concept that you can develop for yourself as an introvert, as somebody, developing presence and that authenticity. So sorry, a very long-winded answer to
No, it's beautiful. And there are so many things I want to come back to. I know we've got a few more comments, so let's have those comments so that we can see. Oh, Tammy, thank you for joining us from Oregon. It's lovely to see you. So thank you for joining us. Brad and August from Melbourne, thank you. That's supposed to be runny, but I don't. Oh, hailstorms. Okay, sunny, but hailstorms. Okay, I think that was supposed to be sunny, not runny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and High Tech Mother's saying hi to report. Yeah, Sebastian's reporting from some planet far out there. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, High Tech Mother. And that's one of the things I wanted to come back to about that sense of wholeness, because I know certainly from my own experience, I don't know if I lost a sense of who I was, but I think I gave away or gave up part of who I was in my desire to conform, in my desire to fit in my desire to get on with what I now recognize as the bias towards the extrovert ideal. So that really is a beautiful concept, that wholeness. And to what extent in your work do you find that people are lacking that sense of wholeness, Helen?
99.999% of everybody that I work with feels that sense of internal emptiness where wholeness is missing, and this need, this desperate, and I'm that's not my word, it's the words of clients that come to me, that desperate need to fill that hole. And often, you take out the W of wholeness, and people feel a hole, like there's something missing. So they seek it in all sorts of different ways, and in all sorts of conformity, putting on masks to go and do particular things, to try, and feel something, feel that wholeness. But through the work, what we do as a team, me and my clients, I always say we become a team, is we look at the internal aspect of that needing to come from within. That's not always going to come from everything, because it can feel like grasping onto a cloud. Yeah. So it needs to come from within, and then the quality connections and the deepened relationships will happen from that. It's for that intimacy, that trust in other people, feeling safe in our connections, on our surroundings with people, comes that wholeness piece, that authenticity piece, that self-connection and self-awareness first. I always say to people, one of my little things is the safest relationship, the most trusting relationship you will ever develop is the one that you create with yourself.
Absolutely echo that. And in a way that takes me back to something I wanted to mention about the self-compassion, because I suppose I was surprised to hear that it's viewed a bit like self-pity or something. So is it almost falling into the same trap as we've had where when we actually talk about needing to look after ourselves, that's seen as selfish? So what we need to do is actually recognize that we're not being selfish when what we actually do is look after and nourish our own needs. Is it the same kind of category or classification almost now?
It's seen as, the things that, especially, with people I talk to, when people come and, because underpinning my work is self-compassion. underpinning
Right.
every
Yeah.
therapeutic process. And I'm trained in quite a lot of different therapies. My husband always says, do you ever stop? And I said, I'll never stop learning for the people that need me. So, when I look at how people are understanding self-compassion, and I hear some of the words that are used, that it's not seen, it is that it's taken into the same category as kind of self-care, whereas self-compassion is presence. Self-compassion is presence, and it's responding to the thoughts and the emotions, the sensations, the beliefs, what people call self-sabotage. I call them protection factors. They're protective behaviors because they're trying to protect you from being vulnerable, and being hurt and being seen often. So being present is responding to the need that comes from those. And so it goes beyond self-care. It's the internal response to the needs that you have that may have not been met, or there's some that are missing. And listening, truly listening. I say listening with your heart ears and not just these ones. Listen with your heart ears and respond through the compassion that you can give yourself. Because if you can give compassion out, you can give it to yourself. You are literally in your brain wired for self-compassion. So, it's in the mammalian part of the brain, and it's activated when we see suffering.
Right.
And so, when people say, "Oh, I can be compassionate to others and I can't be compassionate to myself," and I say, actually, underneath everything that you've experienced, underneath the expectations and the things that have happened, is a calm, confident, compassionate self that is dying to get out. And when you link in, when you respond to yourself, to your pain, to your upset, to your emotion, with the compassion that it desperately needs, you become more present.
Yeah. And I've just felt a moment of just listening to you, of dropping in actually to my own self-compassion. And I saw a comment pop up on screen from High Tech Mother saying that you have her in tears. Yeah. And now I've got goosebumps as well. So yeah, that's really working for me. And that's one of the reasons why you, Helen, for me, absolutely epitomize everything that I think about in terms of the majesty of quiet presence, because just being in your company somehow, even though I haven't physically done that very often, it always does what it just has now and drops me into that place of self-compassion. And what a gift it is you have to be able to take people there, or open the route for them to get there. Even if you don't take them there, somehow you open a few doorways or open some gateways or do something to enable them to drop into that.
I wish. Sometimes I wonder if I actually notice I'm doing it, because people just turn around to me and say, especially clients as well. Even the little ones, they kind of go, "How did you make me do that?" And I said, "It didn't make you do anything. just allowed the door to be opened. When you open the window of opportunity for compassion to be part of your life, and self-compassion to be part of your life, then the world opens up for you, and you get to just feel this sense of peace and calm. And I often have people say to me, "I've got this weird feeling, Helen, but I don't know, it's not something that I recognize." And I say, "Let's explore it for a bit. Let's have a think," because I never ask people to name their emotions, because we feel our emotions first. We don't name them. We feel them, everywhere in our bodies. I've had one client that she said that shame was in her knee. It was a very interesting place to find it. But when you link in with all of that, and you provide that compassion to all those aspects of yourselves, it's but it's not me doing it. I provide the co-regulation that allows people to move with rather than move through. Wow. And when you move with self-compassion, it becomes like just this beautiful kind of ease inside of you. If you're trying to move through and get to the other side of it, you're constantly saying, oh, I've got to try and reach that. Yeah. Take out the word try and say, I'm being compassionate to myself.
Yeah.
And in being that, you can grow it.
So I think I know how we're going to link into the second question I had, which was how we develop our own presence. It seems to me that that is very naturally by, well, we grow our self-compassion, we access our self-compassion. Yeah. But obviously I'd love to hear your take on that now.
It is definitely, linking in with, developing the self-compassion, but alongside that is building on on self-awareness. That communication with yourself around being aware of what you're feeling, where you're feeling, what you're experiencing, who you are. A lot of people say to me, I don't know who I am, Helen. And I go, but they describe themselves, I'm angry, I'm this, I'm that. There's all the I ams. I always invite people to stop saying I am, and there's a part of me that is.
Yes.
Because the I am should be, I am compassionate to all those parts of me that might struggle. I am compassionate to my introverted self for sometimes finding it difficult to be in large groups of people and really struggling and kind of shrinking. It's the compassion that you bring to yourself, but the awareness that that's what you're feeling, the awareness of who you are, your values, your boundaries. I work so closely with people's values. The values that they have of themselves and the values that they have of the people and connections that they have around them. I always say to people, you have this kind of, I describe it as like you're a planet and you've got, like the rings of Saturn, your planet is where you are. It's you, it's your whole, okay, your wholeness. And then the rings of Saturn, you can have the closest people to you. There's the ones that will have the same or similar values to you. They're the ones that will never tread on those values. And the further away those rings are, those are the connections you kind of may tap into. And then for some, there's a black hole.
And rightly so, and they can stay there as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So self-awareness is developing your understanding of the values that you have of who you are. And when we link it back to being an introvert, a huge value of mine is being an introvert. That I actually feel very safe with myself. I feel very calm with who I am. I can I can sit with myself and enjoy my own company because I don't need to be out there doing everything. I can link into it and step out and link in and step out. But, feeling safe and calm and peaceful with yourself is a value. And connecting with your values, your boundaries that protect those values, develops your self-awareness and the authenticity, the wholeness that you're looking for.
Yeah. It's just happened again, just dropped me straight into my self-compassion, because that's for me something that is also incredibly important as introverts, that we don't give ourselves a hard time or feel guilt or shame about the fact that we need to step out from time to time, or that we only have a certain amount of battery life to spend with other people. But the way you put it in terms of, I feel safe with myself. And for me, there are far too few people who would be able to say that. Even though they know they want time on their own, they don't necessarily feel safe on their own. So, working with people to help them develop that is incredibly important. We've got some comments coming in around self-compassion, and maybe I think some questions even for you, Helen, about self-compassion. So August, how beautifully said, both of you. Brad, thank you. I kind of knew, Brad, that this would be your thing. So yeah. And doesn't Helen put it beautifully? Absolutely. Sebastian, self-compassion is something I'm constantly working on, not perfectly, but trying my best. But listen to what Helen said about trying, Sebastian. Do you want to come back to that, Helen?
I was going to ask, can I?
Please do. Please do.
I'm going to invite you, Sebastian, to take out the word try. You know, you are developing, you are being compassionate to yourself. There's no perfection. If you're striving for perfection, perfection's just fear in a fur coat. No, it is stressed up. You know, perfectionism, it doesn't exist. Being perfectly compassionate to yourself doesn't exist. Being and doing and experiencing it and learning from it and moving with it is what you're doing. Okay. I'm usually adopted. But really, one of the things that's really important for me around all of this is language. Okay.
Yes.
Because we take on this language of trying, perfectionism, reaching, striving, you know, hustling. Okay. That's all it is. And then in all of that, when you feel like you're trying and something goes a little bit wrong and you feel then the shame of, I got that wrong, I must be a failure.
Yeah.
You know? Then it's harder to give yourself compassion. And the antidote to shame is self-compassion. So, you know, I'm being compassionate to myself. May not be perfect, and that's okay because nothing is. But I'm being compassionate to myself. I am developing my compassion towards myself. I am choosing me. That is the words that you need to say.
Right.
You'll never be perfect at self-compassion.
And it is just about leaving that try bit out, because the sentence works almost as well, doesn't it? If you just leave, so not I am trying, I am.
I am
being. Yeah.
And some days it's great, and some days I'm really rubbish at it, and that's okay because, you know, that's life, and we're human, and there's things that will get in the way, but that's okay. Give yourself some grace on it, you know.
Yes. Be compassionate about the fact that we are work in progress. We are always work in progress.
Yeah. And that's why I say we're always looking for wholeness.
Yeah. I know, Patty, isn't that brilliant? Love is perfection is fear in a fur coat. I love that. Have we got any more? Yeah, Pat Tammy loves that as well. Have we got any more questions for Helen? Because I suspect that, yes, I'm in love with it as well, High Tech Mother. I've wanted Helen to be on this particular topic for a while now, and I knew she was worth waiting for. Absolutely. I almost feel like you're sitting next to me, Helen, and holding me. There's no need to apologize. You've put it beautifully there, High Tech Mother. So I know. And Helen, as I say, Helen epitomizes everything I think about with authentic presence. And I hope it's all right for me to say, but I only have to think about Helen to kind of calm myself and get there, because there is something so powerful about your presence, Helen, in such a positive way.
Thank you.
High Tech Mother. Oh, this is a big one for you, I think, Helen.
Ooh, how can I learn to not hate my decisions when people betray me? It is a big one. It's acknowledging that the betrayal is coming from them and not towards yourself. Is not taking the ownership of what other people choose to do. And that is a huge thing for people, because we often do, we'll absorb it. We'll take on that it must be me, it must have been my fault. If I was different, if I wasn't me, if I was just a different kind of person, then they wouldn't do that to me. When people betray you, I'm just, obviously I don't have all the context, but I'll stick with the one that I have. When people betray you, they're making a choice to do that.
Yeah.
That's not your choice, and you're not there to change their choices. You are here to respond to yourself and the pain that you feel around that in a way that makes you feel safe, and in a way that makes you feel that you are empowered. Okay, because that betrayal disempowers you. Okay, So it's linking back to the response. Every emotion is a signpost to what you need. We will never get rid of unpleasant emotions because they are part of the human experience.
Yeah.
So the shame, the fear, the judgment, all of those things, the way that we, and the self-judgment are all ways in which they're messages to what it is that we are needing. And when we listen to that, when we notice that, when we are aware of it, so awareness, noticing, responding, what does this emotion need from me? But the betrayal is somebody else's choice. It's always a difficult one for people to hear. They're like, oh, it's not as easy as that. No, it's not. Actually, it takes practice. It takes practice to not take the ownership of somebody else's choices and their behavior and only respond to our own. That's a big boundary. I do a lot of bioenergetic boundary work with clients because it's a big one. Bioenergetic basically means you have to feel the boundary and the value before you can say it. Just saying, I don't like that, or I don't.
That's not acceptable or something. Yeah.
If you can't physically feel it, what it feels like to actually believe that in yourself, the words are going to not work. So, you have to feel into what does this feeling, what does this emotion, what does this sensation, what does this behavior need from me? How people choose to behave towards me is their choice. I get to choose whether they're in my life. Go back to the rings of Saturn and your world, Yeah.
That for me, again, is something so incredibly powerful in terms of what does that emotion need from me? Because it encourages us to stay with that, to stay in the moment, to stay feeling it rather than try and brush it to one side because it's not a nice feeling or not a nice emotion in some way. So to stay with it and feel into it in some ways.
Mm-hmm. And true kind of resilience is moving with the emotion.
Yes.
Not trying to move through it, because like I said, moving through is almost like you're expecting it to just completely disappear, and emotions don't.
Yeah.
I still feel sad about the experiences that I had for when I was younger, but I'm also kind to that little girl, Yeah. She needs my kindness. She needs my support. She needs the woman that I am now in the here and now, this calm, compassionate, strong, empowered, fearless, slightly fierce at times, woman, to hold her, to respond to her. Because sometimes those emotions that when people have betrayed me, because they have, what they do is they activate her. They don't activate this woman.
Yeah.
So that's why I say those emotions, we respond from this place, this adult that we are now.
Yeah, perfect. We've got more questions and comments if you're still okay for some more, Helen.
I'm good.
Brilliant. Yes, Patty. I'm going to be going back and watching it as well because there is so much wisdom that Helen is sharing. I'm trying to scribble down quite a lot of it, but I know I'm going to be going back, watching it and pausing and writing things down. So, yeah. Okay, August. Making my husband cry. It's a good cry. Oh, good. How can I stop feeling guilty for things I didn't even do wrong? There's your next question, Helen.
Sorry. For just not being able to help when it's not even my role. Is that part of the same question? Sorry, can I just... So there were two. Yeah? Okay. How can I stop feeling guilty for things I didn't even do wrong? Sometimes that isn't guilt, it's shame. Because the experience makes us feel that. And shame and guilt shame is the I am. Guilt is I did something to someone, So often what people get confused with is that they're feeling guilty, whereas in fact that experience has made them feel shame, which is I'm bad, I'm not good enough, it was my fault, those kind of statements. So, the how is in everything that we've talked about so far. and really, when I say the words deep dive, people get a little bit kind of, oh my God, I don't know. Especially when I say it in therapy and they're like, I really don't want to deep dive, Helen, don't make me do that. And I'm like, I'm not going to make you do anything. I'm just going to hold your hand while we explore this. And that's the key word, it's explore. Explore the emotion. Explore not the why, but the what. I always say, take away the why. Why am I feeling like this? Why can't I change? Why can't I do this? Why am I feeling this guilt? Why am I feeling this sad? As soon as you put in the word why, you face a battle with yourself. You put yourself in a corner, you back yourself in a corner of having to search for the solution. Okay? When you shift out of the why and become more curious with what is it that has made me begin to feel like this? What is it where is it sitting in me? What is it I need? Who is it I need right now? What you do is you open up your curious language. You open up the curiosity that is needed to heal and recover. And curiosity, when we have bad experiences, terrible life experiences, trauma, anything like that, what that does is it closes that off. So we have to open up curiosity and exploration. Mine is Dora the Explorer, and I literally do have a rucksack. I'm not going to lie, because I'm naturally curious, and we aren't curious human beings. We have a natural curiosity, but what bad experiences and difficult life experiences do to us is it shuts curiosity down, and it becomes either rigid or it disappears. So we need like too much of rigidity, or we have too little. When there's a balance, we have that natural curiosity and exploration to bring that awareness of who we are and what we're experiencing and what we need.
Beautiful. Beautiful. August, has that answered some of your question? Maybe. So how would you like to leave this, Helen? Because we've gone on longer than we probably ever would have done, and I feel we could go on for another hour easily. But what would you like to leave us with?
I'd like to leave you with the reminder of being. Now, a lot of people kind of do don't just do be. It's very difficult that, but the being is in the awareness. The being is in the authenticity, it's in the wholeness, it's in the calm. And notice, just notice, stop and bring some noticing to yourselves. And again, what you need. I'll leave on one statement that a little girl said to me, that she was working with me. I did a short piece of work with her because she had a very terrible experience, and she was taking ownership of that experience and ownership of the bad things that happened and the people that did that. And I worked with her for a bit. We worked on awareness, we worked on values, we worked on compassion. And she said to me in her final session, she said, she's 11. She said to me, I think I get it now, Helen. And I said, okay, what'd you get? And she went, just because something bad happened to me, it doesn't mean I have to hate myself for the rest of my life. And I said, that's exactly it. So she went into school and she taught all the class about compassion.
Wow.
Yep. She did. I gave her all sorts of different like compassion hugs to do for herself, and she went into school and because she said it feels like a hug from my mum, and I said, yeah, that's what it needs to be. So she went in and taught the class all my stuff around somatic self-compassion. So I have a feeling she'll be a therapist in years to come.
Absolutely. And what an enlightened class now of young people who are already on that road to self-compassion, way younger than I ever got onto that road. So how beautiful, how beautiful. Helen, thank you so much. As I say, I have a sense that we could keep talking for ages. And Obviously, we'll catch up with you right after this, because I think there are more comments that will feed on questions that will feed your way. But for now, Helen, thank you. It's been an honor to have you here, an honor to connect with you. And it is an honor to have you even as a ring of Saturn around, around me. So thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you. And for those of us who are used to this kind of format, are you ready for today's pebble? I have a feeling that whilst I'm holding up a relatively small pebble today, it's going to be a proper big old rock. I think one of the things I've absolutely picked up from Helen is the fact that any one of us can develop presence, whether we're introverts or not, actually. And to use Helen's route into it, it's about self-compassion. It's about being prepared to be vulnerable. It's about actually being prepared to be with those feelings and those emotions, and to be curious about why are they where, or what are they there to teach us? Not why did stuff happen, but what are these emotions and their things there to teach us? And whilst I started off talking about those regal archetypes, because for me, Helen does epitomize the majesty of quiet presence, one of the things we can use to think about this, and it links to what Helen was talking about with boundaries, is that, those who are nobility in some way command those in their realm, a bit like Helen's Saturn rings. They have trusted courtiers at their hearth and warriors who will defend them. And they also have those people out there in the wider realm, some of whom they may not connect with. But we all possess and demonstrate all of the traits that we need, actually, to develop presence, to develop our self-compassion, to allow ourselves to drop in and feel whatever it is we need to feel, compassion for our younger self. And it is all about making sure that what we're doing is more than being kind, actually giving ourselves those somatic hugs that Helen talked about. So that, dear introverts, is the majesty of quiet presence. And I have a final question for you, because it wouldn't be a dropping pebbles in the pond episode without a question. Are you ready to be vulnerable enough to drop into your self-compassion? Maybe with the help of your regal robes or your crown, whether it be at a jaunty angle or not, so that what you can do is step into your quiet presence. And if you're ready to do that, pop a yes or a I'm ready in the comments, and we will see them later, even if we don't see them now. So today, Helen and I have explored a little about what quiet presence really means and how we might go about developing it. And as you'll have gathered, word to the wise, it's an inside job, and one which either you can develop with the help of an amazing therapist like Helen, and at a different level, a more superficial level, and I'm not afraid of saying that, we can do that inside the Frustrated to Flourishing program tool, because we are all works in progress. And just like you, my flourishing journey continues. And you too could be a guest on Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. We have an application form, and you're very welcome to pop your name and invite yourself to join me here on Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. But for this episode, thank you. And remember, self-compassion is where we're aiming. Few comments before we actually close. So please, Sebastian, if you'll pop them in. Should have warned that I'll need tissues. Yeah. Isn't she amazing?
I'm the typical therapist that normally carries them around with me for everyone.
Yeah. Sebastian's saying, interesting, used to sign off with because I am until 2018. Thanks for the early reply. Yeah, good. And yes, so you can still sign off with, or you can sign off again, Sebastian, with I am. Brilliant. Awesome ripples. Yes, they're reaching you, Tammy, right across the pond. They're reaching you. You have work to do, as do we all. We are all work in progress. Yeah. Chris, I need to share this episode with my sister when she returns from work. Please do, Chris. Please do. Hell yes. Oh, that's a hell yes. Chris is ready to drop into her self-compassion. Love it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here with us, whether you were live or whether you're watching on replay. And Helen, finally, a huge thanks from me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.